Welcome to Alternatively Speaking from KCSA Podcast Labs. I'm Ann Donahoe, and I'm joined by my co-host Phil Carlson. And today, as we explore longevity and the forces at work to extend human health span and lifespan, there has been one person who has been front and center in this science and research and media. Just Google him. His name is Dr. Nir Barzilai, and his titles are ridiculous, so give me a moment here to get them all in. Dr. Barzilai is the founding director of the Institute for Aging Research, the Nathan Schock Center of Excellence in the Basic Biology of Aging, and the Paul F. Glenn Center for the Biology of Human Aging and Research at Albert Einstein College of Medicine. Whew. Dr. Barzilai is renowned for discovering the first longevity genes in humans and has been at the forefront of research into the biology of aging. His work has been featured in major media outlets. Like I said, use the Google, and we'll have some links in our show notes. And he's led to the development of the treatment for age-related diseases currently in clinical trials. In this episode, we'll explore topics like the difference between aging and longevity, the concept of superagers, the potential of drugs like metformin in extending health span, and practical steps we all can take to improve our odds of living to 100 while retaining our health. So whether you're a science enthusiast, health-conscious individual, or simply curious about the secrets to a longer, healthier life, you're in for a treat. Let's get started with our conversation with Dr. Nir Barzilai.
Dr. Barzilai, Nir, thank you for joining us today. As we have been putting this podcast series together, we've been speaking with a number of experts in the field of longevity science. So before we speaking with you today, we spoke with Jamie Justice, who was very excited that we were speaking to you. She said to make sure we talked to you about superagers, but before we get there, can you give us a quick introduction and give our listeners an overview of your work?
Well, I'm a geroscientist. Okay, geroscientists are people who hoped. That's when I came in, and then found the promise that aging is something that can be modulated, and it can be modulated quite easily. And in fact, we're kind of ready to implement this, although this has taken many, many more years than we want. And being a geroscientist, I'm a geroscientist because of my background as a biologist and geneticist. I'm the guy who started this aging center at Einstein, and this is the biggest center in the world for the biology of aging. And I'm wearing also other hats, like I'm the scientific director of the American Federation for Aging Research. I'm the executive in Longevity Biotech Association. I'm on the board of the Academy for Healthy Health and Lifespan Research. And I'm also a counsel in the Human Longevity Medicine Society. I'm not throwing those names. I just want to say it much more simply. I'm from cells to cities or to countries. And also the major, if there's one sentence that I'd like you to realize, is that this is the time for our listeners. This is the time to decide, do you want to spend time on your health or do you want to spend time on your disease? There's an option right now, and I hope to convince you.
First of all, when do you sleep with all of those job titles? And I hope you're getting enough of it. But, as we're talking about the study of aging, and we had talked a little bit, before this, that, some people believe aging is a disease that can be treated like a cold or a cancer. Others believe it's just an inevitable natural process that we can only hope to slow down. And it feels like you're not looking to just slow down. You're looking to reverse in some instances, right?
Right. So I'm going to tell you, I'm going to confuse you. I'm going to give you contradictory answers. Aging is the mother of all diseases. I think what people know that there's a biology of aging. We know who's old and who's young. What people don't understand is this aging process is what drives diseases. You can be born with genes for Alzheimer, but you're not born demented, and you're not demented when you're 1, 10, 50 years old. Okay, you need the biology of aging to get the diseases. It's true for all the diseases. Okay, um, and so aging is the mother of the diseases. Yet, I find it of no value to call it that yet. And the reason is that look what happened in COVID. We took all the elderly and sent them into islands. We isolated them. Okay, they were lonely because they were old. Elderly people don't want to be called sick. Okay, and not all of them are sick. What, you're 60 years old, so now you're sick? The FDA doesn't want to call aging a disease. The American Federation for Aging Research doesn't want to call aging a disease. So the people we want to help most don't want to be called sick. What we found out in a process and interaction with the FDA, that doesn't matter. We don't need to call names. We don't need to insult anyone. We know what to do, and we can do it. So, for example, with the FDA, it's not we're preventing aging, but we're preventing age-related diseases. The FDA said, "Oh, you prevent age-related diseases. This is fine. We can call it aging. They can call it whatever they want. But to move ahead, we don't need to do that." And I guess I'll change my mind once everybody knows that aging can be targeted. Maybe we'll change our minds. Also, I don't care if other countries want to call aging a disease. I think that's going to be fine. But I don't think it's necessary. And we need those people to support us. We don't want to antagonize them.
All right. So words matter in this case.
I think that's the summary. Words matter.
Right. I guess in thinking about, how the body ages, there's this mixed focus on, there's a whole cottage industry on exercise, diet, mindset. And now I think we're getting into more body chemistry and biofeedback, and, regular people like me and Phil, able, like, having access to all of this information, which is overwhelming. The focus of your career really has been on chemistry. How do you think about all of this and what's available to us now?
Well, just that that, yeah, but by the way, that's the advice to people. You want to start fighting aging, you have to maximize your exercise, your nutrition, your sleep, and your social connectivity, okay? You can do it at any time. All of those have underlying biology, okay? We can measure the biology that changes if you exercise or if you lose weight or when you sleep. And by the way, I sleep. Everybody thinks I'm in the other organization, so I go to sleep.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. You didn't answer that question. How much sleep are you getting?
or social, right? Social connectivity.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have social connectivity, you still have psychedelics to use, right? I mean, all of them have a biology. And yes, for us, the interaction, the way we determine how it works and how we can do better is through determining the biology of aging on a cellular level.
Okay, so that's a good lead into this. So you discovered the first longevity gene in humans. Can you tell us a little bit about that discovery? And might CRISPR technology, the technology of genetic editing, can that hold a key to both longevity and health span?
So I'm glad you're asking me the question. So let me start with the discovery. We saw something really incredible. There are people who are 100 years old and healthy. Okay, this is kind of my dream. We should all be healthy until 100 years old, and die the next day, right? And indeed, I started collecting those elderly. I have 750 families, them and their families of 100 years old. And first of all, we determined that it's not only that they live longer, they live healthier, okay? In fact, they already doubled the lifespan of the people they were born with. when I started with my centenarians, their friends died when they were 50. They continue to be 100 years old. But even if we compare them to people who are aging right now at this time, they get sick 20, 30 years longer. That's not the important thing. There's something much more important there, and that's that they have what's called a contraction of morbidity. They're sick very little time at the end of their lives. 30% of our centenarians over the age of 100 don't have any disease, and some of them will just not wake up this morning. So we have those group that are really incredible, that they live percentage-wise, they double the lifespan, okay, pretty much. So what's their secret? Well, their secret could simply be that they exercise, right, eat well, sleep, and social connectivity. And we found out that generally it's not true. For example, 50% of them are smokers, over 50% are obese or overweight. And by the way, people made on comedy shows at night, people made a joke of that. The secret to longevity is just be fat, eat whatever you want, but no.
Cigarettes and bacon.
Yeah. For them, well, if you smoke for 95 years, you live long life, okay? But that's not.
My grandma Carlson was 97. She smoked Winston's until she was 97.
There you go. There you go. So they have something that slows their aging to the extent that they don't get the diseases even. I mentioned Alzheimer's and this genotype ApoE4. I have centenarians that says ApoE4 genotype, and the textbook said that it should be demented in 60, 70, and dead at 80, and they're not demented and not dead at 100.
Wow.
So they have something very powerful that slows their aging prospect and make them resilient to diseases until very late in life. And those are the discoveries that they're making.
So the centenarians, are these the superagers?
Well,
the superagers something else.
You can find superagers. If you search for superagers, you'll be surprised because people start. I believe I'm the first that cloned the term in something like 1998, and it was my website, superager, and I meant people who are healthy over the age of 95. But then there were other superagers, for example, superagers who were 80 years old but without diseases. They were called superagers. So I don't want to fight. We already talked about the words, right? I don't want to fight about the words. For me, superagers are healthy over 95. And in fact, I'm leading an initiative out of the American Federation of Aging Research that's called the Superagers Family Study, where we're recruiting 10,000 by web, by the way, 10,000 centenarians for a community and for a study where all they have to do is spit a little bit into a tube, and we can then sequence their DNA and find all those longevity genes or validate the longevity genes that we found so far.
You're recruiting for that right now?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Please,
so we'll
very important.
stick
Superagers.com initiative.
Okay. We'll make sure that we have a link in our show notes there because I think we all know some superagers
I know. I'm counting on you.
Yes, we do.
What about this 97-year-old? Is she dead already?
My grandmother. Yeah, she passed away.
Oh.
Yeah, she passed away in 2014. 2014? Okay. Yes, 2014. But yeah, she lived, I guess, healthy. Can you say it's a healthy life if she was smoking 2 packs of Winston's a day? It just seems, like it's all like a crapshoot then if she lives to 97, but smoking and drinking her Sanka.
That's not the advice you want to give to smoke. But I didn't
right.
answer your question because you immediately said, what's the longevity genes? I didn't tell you specific, but can we use CRISPR?
Yeah.
The answer is, look, all our genetic research is leading to drug development, not to genetic treatment. It's drug development. 2/3 of the drugs that were approved to the FDA last year were based on human genetic data. Once we find the genetic data that is relevant to sick or healthy people, then we usually can develop drugs. I cannot think of many examples that we need to do a whole genetic manipulation in order to extend health span and lifespan. Okay, it's drug development. There are already 2 drugs that developed in part based on our information that have passed a phase 3 trial and are going to be out in the market very soon by Merck and by Ionis. There's other drugs that we've tested and could be repurposed. So finding longevity genes it's the opposite. When 100 years old come to me and say, "Hey, what do you have for me?" I'm like, "You're
You got it. You already got it. You were
Yes,
born with it, right?"
I'm thinking of your friends that died 50 years ago, right? That's where I could have helped.
Well, when we talk about drugs, drug development, there have been some that have been talked about a lot, rapamycin and metformin, and some are seeing this as, I hate this word or this phrase, but the wonder drug for aging. Can you talk about the role that those drugs are playing in helping the non-centenarians in their lives?
Right. So we actually published, and we're going to have an update of drugs that were given to animals, but when I'm saying animal, mammalians, okay, mice or rat or monkeys, and by the way, to humans too, some of them to humans too, and in animals they extended health span and lifespan, and in humans they've shown. So you develop a medicine for one purpose, and all of a sudden it shows benefits on something else. And we gave a score to there are 12 drugs like that, and we gave them a score. But certainly the example that you gave, metformin and rapamycin, are example for those drugs. How do we know that we have a drug that targets aging? Well, I just told you we can give it to animal and see, because, by the way, the nice thing is all animals kind of age similarly. The skin, the hair, the skeletal, the muscle, the diseases, not the same diseases, not the same skeletal, but it's very, very good model. So if we have something against aging, it should work on all animals. That's why our scale are 6, what we call preclinical points from animals, and 6 points are from human studies. So there are drugs that are out there that were used for a certain disease. For example, metformin was used for diabetes, but metformin targets all the hallmarks of aging, and in clinical studies have shown that it can prevent diabetes, that it can prevent heart disease. People on metformin have much less cancers. People on metformin have less Alzheimer's, and people on metformin die less. So all those studies have been done, so we are pretty sure that this could be used and repurposed for giving it to elderly before they have frailty, before they have sarcopenia, and targeting their aging and preventing diseases.
So why wouldn't we go down that road now then, right? And start, well, I guess you have to get a prescription for metformin, but it's a relatively cheap drug to get to people. So
that's exactly where my effort is. It's frustrating how long it takes. You're right. If we know all that, why don't we do it? Well, a lot of people are doing it. I have to tell you, I'm on metformin. Okay, I was pre-diabetic. I'm not anymore, but a lot of people are giving out metformin, and the point is, since it's an FDA-approved drug, any doctor can repurpose it. Okay, metformin was repurposed for PCOS. Metformin was purposed for pre-diabetes. Okay, that's not an FDA approval. But this is the point. The study that I'm leading, that's called TAME, Targeting Aging with Metformin, is designed for the FDA. Okay, for the FDA to show them that we can target aging. What do you mean? What does it mean targeting aging for us? We're going to be agnostic to diseases. We don't know what disease you're going to get next. You might get diabetes, you might get heart, you might get Alzheimer, but whatever it is, we're going to prevent it over time and show that this cluster of diseases and mortality is shifted. And once we show it to the FDA, I think a lot of things will happen at the same time. First of all, healthcare providers will be happy to pay for metformin if their subjects will be healthier for several more years. It'll be cost saving, and it's the cheapest drug on the formulary. Also, pharmaceuticals are kind of waiting to see what the FDA will do because they need a business plan, right? And if the FDA is not looking at aging, then there's no business plan, so it's going to be different for them. So there's a lot of things that people are waiting, even just to start this study. People are really anxious because this will lead to a big change in the minds of everybody. And we need the politicians, we need the media, we need people like you to just spread those gospels and be ready for a much better aging.
That's great. I actually just had my annual physical the other week, and I wish we would have done this podcast a few weeks prior so I could talk to my doctor about certain things. But I want to talk about the economics of aging here, because it seems like if people are living to over 100, like, is there going to be stresses on the healthcare system, but they're living a healthier life, I guess, until they're at that age. But, people that are in their 60s and 70s that are having a tough time. Can you talk a little bit about the economics and how, like, the healthier we are at living longer is more beneficial than if we're sicker at a younger age?
Right. So, and I already mentioned that our centenarians have contraction of morbidity. The CDC, okay, we know what's the CDC these days. The CDC have looked at the medical cost in the last 2 years of life of somebody who dies over the age of 100, and it was third of the medical cost in the last 2 years of life of people who died, in their 70s.
That's incredible.
That
Wow.
shocked us. So we started talking about those longevity dividend. There is a guy, Andrew Scott, is a professor of economy in London School of Economics. He's coming now with a book, but he wrote a very important paper. And I was part of the day. I gave him some of the data for this paper, where he said, just a minute, guys, you're talking about the medical costs. So these guys now are not in the hospital, okay? But what are they doing? They're traveling, they're shopping, they're buying houses. So there's an economical value that is beyond being in a hospital.
They're participating in the economy versus they're adding to it versus taking from it.
Exactly. And that's, now it's the people over age 65 are 40% of the economy. So the economical value, and he actually calculated it, it's like $36 trillion a year, or $360 trillion in the next 10 years for even extension of a couple of years in health span. Okay, it's a huge, huge number. So this whole idea that health, I think people don't understand. Yes, people will get older, but they get older because they are getting healthier. And when they get older, they'll die one day because the aging process is not totally stopped. So they'll die one day. But this is a very different economical problem than what happens today. But it's more than that. Look, think of China, right? China, for 40 years, you could have only one child. So now you have those elderly coming in, and they maybe have one child, and this one child maybe not next to them. Who's going to take care of them? And the only answer is you have to make them healthier. Okay, that could be your only plan. You're not going to bring other people from other country to China to take care of those people. I think we have to have a population that as they grow old, they're healthier and they're able to take care of themselves for longer, and that they're going to save us a lot of the economy.
I want to talk a little bit about maybe the ethics of it too. In our research, the people who are in longevity are a lot of white men who've got lots of money, and as we talk about accessibility and giving people the tools they need in order to live a longer, healthier life. How do you see that? Is this emblematic of, the wealthy having access to more of these things than, someone who's maybe on Medicaid or, using the emergency room as their doctor? I'm not sure. This question is kind of like,
I understand.
Are you understanding it? Okay, good.
Yeah,
Better than I'm articulating it.
So, but you started with ethic. So just one thing, it's, if you're asking me, is it ethical to extend your health span and make you healthy and happy for longer? I don't have my ethical question is why wouldn't you do that? Okay, not why would I do it? So let's say that you're talking really about accessibility. And first of all, look at metformin. This is the cheapest drug in the formulary. Okay, this can be available to everyone, and healthcare providers will be happy to provide that. Okay, so in fact, in my view, the people who should get that first are the poor people. The people who should get it second are people who survived cancer. For cancer, we give radiation, chemotherapy, and we make people older. So they should have it. People with HIV get diseases 10 years younger. So it's not even about the elderly. There's a lot of people that need helps and need to kind of target their aging sooner rather than later. Otherwise, what's going to happen is exactly what happened until now. When drugs are new, they're going to be expensive. There was an Alzheimer drug, right? It was removed now, but it's like $56,000 a year. Look, Ozempic, okay? Ozempic in our new paper is a longevity drug. Okay, it's a gerotherapeutic because obesity drives aging. Okay, so if you can get rid of obesity, you can actually do a lot with aging. Ozempic is expensive, but it'll get cheaper. It's the first 5 years are cheaper. So, and as I said, we don't need genetic, we don't need CRISPR to target aging for now. So I think they're repurposed drugs that are cheaper or cheap. They are drugs that will be better and will be in combination and will be more expensive for a while, and the healthcare provider will have to figure out what do they do with that. And then there might be treatments that are, stem cells or something like that. It'll be in the future, and maybe you then ask again who can get those stem cells. But for me, it's about the poor people who die much before the people who take care of themselves and can go to gym and sleep without worry.
So but in going back to metformin, like it's that you're just not taking a pill. Like you also have to exercise. You also have to eat, right? Correct. And it's like follow a certain. Well, I guess
Bill, he's not your personal doctor.
I know, but I'm like just going back to my Grandma Carlson.
He didn't ask me how much metformin to take. Not yet.
I know. We're getting.
20 minutes.
I know him. We're getting there.
I'm texting you on the side. I'm texting you on the side here.
Look, this concept of maximizing your health, okay, means how many steps did you go? You know, do you have a Fitbit? If you did 5,000 steps today, it's not enough. You should go 7,000. If you maximize your health, okay, but are you ideal body weight? If not, you can maximize it too. Okay. Did you sleep? How many hours did you binge watching television, you know, and you didn't sleep? Then stop it, right? By the way, for older people, a lot of the sleep disturbances have to do with sensitivity to alcohol. Alcohol is excitatory. If you had a dinner, alcohol, it might have mellowed you down for a while, and then when you go to sleep, it's excitatory. So you can maximize your, and I already told about social connectivity or psychological, you can have psychedelics, right? And other stuff. So there's a way to maximize your health, including at a certain stage to start taking drugs in combination. Okay, it's you have to assume that a lot of it is additive. Not all of it is additive, but a lot of that is additive. So there's a way to maximize your health all the time and from any age.
Okay, well, I have another question here because
personal.
No. You know, there's a lot. You see a lot in the news, especially with what's his name, Brian Johnson. He's getting a lot of attention in the longevity industry. But in a recent New York Times article, you have your doubts. Is it him specifically, or the biohackers generally?
Yeah, look, I you know, the papers are publishing what they want. I understand the frustration of Brian Johnson. I'm not immortalist, okay? For me, death is not inevitable. Death will happen. Aging the way it is not what I don't like, okay? So I understand his frustration. I understand his desire to be healthier. And I also kind of think, you know, no publicity is bad publicity. I think that on one side, he's skipping the publicity. People are asking now, is it really possible to deal with aging? And maybe they'll come to our podcast and they'll hear a scientist talk about that, and it'll help to understand. The thing with Brian Johnson that worries me is we don't do experiment with n equal 1. You know, 1 is not an experiment. No matter what he's doing it on his own, and whatever he's doing might be good to him and maybe other people, but can be harmful to other. The second thing is some of the things that he's doing and publicizing, I think, are kind of dangerous. He's using, I hear now it was 115 last time. I hear he is now 121 supplements. And I looked at those supplements and I kind of understand why he chose those supplements. And he's assuming that each one will add or even be synergistic. You know, them together will be amazing. But in fact, some of them will be antagonistic. And we know that. And he's taking several drugs that are antagonistic. So I think if people are saying we want to be Brian Johnson, it's very, very difficult. And by the way, he's exercising for 3 hours. He gets blood from his kids, from his son. You know, there's a lot of things that are totally over the top. And all you'll know is about him. And then I'm also fearful that he'll die. And then he'll ruin it for us too, okay? What happens if that happens? And people say he was trying to heck with aging and aging got him, right? So I'm just saying this, I'm a scientist. He's not doing a scientific experiment, okay? He's doing an interesting experiment. I'm sure that he can sell many things from what he's doing. I hope he doesn't die, but that's not an experiment, okay? I respect it, but that's not an experiment. And so that's my view.
Yeah, and I also wonder, you know, about his happiness level. Like, is there enjoyment? Like, is there joy in his life? I mean, I feel like what's it worth if you're, you know, monitoring everything so closely that you're not, going to the theater or reading a book or, I don't know, doing something that brings you joy. But that's probably for another podcast.
This obsession it's almost like, it's like almost like a gambler, right? I mean, you're just stuck into that, and you're trying to break your own records, and it gets to be, it can destroy your life too.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's what brings him joy, but we'll try to get him on the pod and ask him. You've been really open about your practices in creating longevity for yourself. What are some of the things that you're doing that you can talk to our listeners about?
Yeah, I'm actually saying I'm not that open. Okay, I'm saying there are things that I'm doing, and I'm not going to tell you because I'm doing it just like with Brian Johnson. I'm doing it I'm doing it under supervision. I'm doing it for a time. I'm taking blood tests just in order for me to know and understand and have really insight. So I'm not sharing this with anyone. The thing I'm sharing with everyone is that I'm exercising. I'm doing intermittent fasting as my major nutrition intervention. In a dark room for 8 hours every night. I'm successful on sleeping on average 6 hours and 40 minutes a day, no matter what I do. But that's better than less or 5 hours. And with social connectivity, I have this problem, this big deficiency that I've never met a stranger. So my social connectivity is not a problem really, but this is the major thing. So, and that's what I maximize. On top of that, I'm also taking metformin. I started when I was pre-diabetic, so there was a good reason for that. I'm far from being pre-diabetic now, but I am on metformin, and I'm measuring all those biomarkers that I'm not going to recommend anyone because it's between 20 years younger to my age than 3 years older than my age, with the rest somewhere in between. So, but I'm kind of monitoring it from an interest, maybe an interest as a scientist that is similar to what Brian Johnson has, but that's what I'm doing. And those things have shown to help many people. So I'm sure that I'm doing something that if other people are doing, they're most likely to have this terrible side effect. Not only they'll be healthy, but they'll have a terrible side effect. They might even live longer. They may not be able to afford it. So,
right.
Oh, that's a whole nother issue. So thank you so much. I know that we're tight on time here. Is there anything that you feel that we've missed that you would like to share with our audience?
No, that was very, very good. But again, I think this is, some of the things I said are available right now. This idea that you should take care of your health in order to prevent disease and take the time to do it is much better than getting a disease and getting a treatment and then another disease and another treatment and the side effects of the drugs and bad quality of life. It's all about health span, and we can do it, we can accelerate it, and we can achieve our maximal health span in the next, years, not decades.
Nir, Dr. Barzilai, thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
This was great.
Thank you. Good questions. I enjoyed it. Thanks.